Welcome to Mattys Mental Health Podcast, aiming to spread awareness on mental health by sharing the real life stories.
I'm here with Jayne and Ross Quick, all the way from Australia. How are you guys doing this morning?
Very well, thank you, Maddie, and good evening to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for reaching out, guys. We connected on the wonderful world of Facebook, which is so cool that we can connect people around the world that are doing great things. And why don't you guys just give a little intro what you're doing, and then we can go into your story.
Sure. So we are Jayne and Ross Quick from Quick Results Training, as you just mentioned, and we'll just make it clear that that's our surname. So it's not about getting quick results with what we do. We've started a business which is helping people with anxiety or depression and their mental health through exercise and using holistic strategies like mindfulness, eating healthily. We noticed in COVID, Ross having a background in personal training, that we're in the most locked down city in the world, which was Melbourne then. That's where we were residing, and Ross couldn't train his clients, so we moved.
The most lockdown place in the world. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, what was that like? Was it just like Fort Knox, like Nazi camp? I mean,
oh yeah, it was tough.
But I did anyway.
It was really tough. There's so many regulations and restrictions in place. You had curfews. You couldn't go out after a certain hour, 9 p.m. at night. You could only go within 5K.
Yeah, 5 kilometre radius around your house.
Jesus
you
Christ.
weren't allowed to socialise with family or friends. There were just, so many restrictions. And we were just noticing, like just speaking with our clients and our friends and family, just mental health issues were becoming rife. Like people really struggle, just not having interpersonal connections, which I think is part of human nature, to see people, to have human touch and contact, especially those living by themselves. It was really difficult, and I think a lot of people really struggled.
Yeah, like living on your own.
Allowed out
thing
for
everybody.
Reasons.
What
was
stage?
it? It was
shopping. One stage you weren't even allowed to go with your spouse or partner shopping. Only one person was allowed to go to the supermarket from a family household.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have been able to go together to the shops.
Yeah.
Work, if you're an essential worker.
There was exercise.
Exercise for a maximum of 1 hour a day. You're allowed out of the house, whether that was to walk or
and there was
exercise.
One other.
Yeah.
Oh, you're allowed to leave to exercise?
You were for maximum 1 hour. Yeah. But there were also police patrolling.
Jesus Christ.
So if you were caught out over 1 hour, so to speak, you could get fined. If they would want to see your license, and if you were outside of your radius of 5Ks of where you lived without a valid reason, again, you could get fined. So,
and they closed down all the gyms, and people, I suppose that we're lucky because I'm a personal trainer and I've got experience of how you can exercise other than walking and running, and that most people would know how to do if they don't go to the gym. But then most people were kind of just sedentary that whole time because they're like, I usually go to the gym and the gyms are closed, so what can I do, sort of thing. I don't like running, I don't like walking, so I'll just sit on the couch.
I think there's a lot of weight gain.
Lots of weight gain.
Yeah, people we know said they put on weight, and we actually left after 4 months of the first lockdown. Had been locked down in 4 months, and we relocated up north, up to Queensland, where we currently are. Where
the restrictions were a lot less intense.
Yeah, without the lockdowns that Melbourne endured. So, but we've obviously kept in contact with our family and friends down there, and it's been really tough for a lot of people.
And a lot of our clientele are from Melbourne, and they were the most locked down city in the world.
Do you think that was just because it was like a city, like a big city? That's why it was so locked down compared to where you went to, compared to Queensland?
Yeah, potentially. And we have different governments in different states as well. And the climate up here is a lot warmer. So I'm not sure if that played a part.
I don't care about stuff as much,
Yeah, exactly. But for us, it was, a lot of it didn't really make sense. Like a lot of the health food shops were closed down, but the fast food shops were staying open, and then the alcohol bottle shops were staying open. Yeah. And I mean, we know that doesn't always assist with people's mental health, drinking in excess. And a lot of people said they started drinking more, and there were like massive queues. We've got something called Dan Murphy's over here, which is like a
huge liquor store.
And I mean, that was just having queues and queues of people. So people were just resorting to, I guess, trying to numb themselves to deal with these situations of just getting into alcohol. And it was really sad. A lot of it, to us, coming from a health perspective, didn't really make sense. Like the health experts weren't saying go outside, get some vitamin D, exercise. eat really healthily, make sure you're getting your vegetables and your fruit into your diet. And so, there was a lot of contradictory information, which was really tough, I think, for people that don't have a background necessarily in their health and well-being.
Yeah. It was the same thing here. Like, I think the same thing probably everywhere. Everybody was drinking a lot, and it was just the same kind of thing with like health. It was more just like, it seemed like it was more just kind of like, not giving you any advice, just like trying to contain it in any way possible. You know?
Exactly. And just going to extreme measures.
Yeah.
I think, which had, repercussions, unfortunately, for a lot of people.
Mhm.
A lot of, we heard a fireman interviewed and in Melbourne, and he was saying he'd never come out to that many suicide calls, unfortunately, in his 25 plus career. So, I mean, it was
domestic violence.
Domestic violence as well. And I mean, these were things that weren't necessarily portrayed in the media, but it was happening and it was there. And a lot of people, and especially teenagers as well, struggling with self-harm and their mental health. And it was really tough on everyone, I think.
Yeah, I think particularly with teenagers, like how important it is for them to socialize at that age. And they weren't getting that at all.
No, exactly. A lot of their developmental issues as well. And socialization, as you mentioned, it was really, really hard.
Not only that, they put borders around the playground, so kids weren't allowed to play on the playground. So they had
like barriers
around the skate parks.
There was a lot of the parents weren't happy with that, and that kind of didn't last too long because people couldn't understand that rationale. So there were a lot of things they tried to implement and then kind of backtracked on, which was good. But for a lot of younger kids, just using their hour out, they weren't even allowed to go to the playgrounds at some stages, and so it was pretty tough.
Thank God it's over.
Exactly. And, I believe Canada, you had pretty harsh restrictions too
as well.
Yeah, I think everybody online was saying like Canada and Australia is the most strict. Same thing. It was it was very similar thing here. At the height of it, it was like the same kind of thing. Like you could only leave for a handful of reasons, and you couldn't just go out, and there was like a thing, like a bubble. You could only like have like one person outside your household, and all these rules. Only go out for essential reasons.
Yep. So I really felt for a lot of our friends or family who lived by themselves. It was really tough.
So you guys, this is when you guys started your business. Was during this time?
So we kind of moved online because that was the only option we had, really. No one could leave their houses. And then, and thought we'll take more of a holistic approach too, just with helping educate people as well, because it was all very fitness focused. But Ross, as he'll expand on today, has a history with mental health, psychosis, and severe anxiety and depression. And because that was becoming so rife, we thought, well, this is a great opportunity. And this is something that was so passionate for Ross, wanting to give back and help other people. And through his journey, not really having anyone that he could speak to. So we thought this is a great opportunity to get out there and help others who are really struggling at the moment. And then still, even up here in Queensland, without the strict restrictions, there are a lot of people that are still struggling with social anxiety and don't necessarily want to go out. So I think it's just, and the way the world has gone, where everything's so fast paced and just thrown at you, I think it's very hard to, for a lot of people to take time out and just focus on their own health, mental health and well-being.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I guess we can go, before we go into, I guess, like kind of your story, Ross, like, and of like starting your business, going online opposed to in person, and then moving more towards incorporating the mental health stuff as well.
We've found it so rewarding, as Jayne kind of touched on before. Something I really struggled with when I was really acute with my mental illness was that I wanted to meet someone who'd been through what I was going through at that stage, and it could tell me there was light at the end of the tunnel, and tell me, times are tough at the moment, but as time progresses, then things will improve if you find strategies and put them in place to deal with your illness. I think it's been, and now I suppose we've created this business to be those role models for those people who are currently struggling. And that's something that's we feel so passionate about now, that we can help people who may be struggling with what I was struggling with, or some sort of other sort of mental illness. We're over the moon that we can do that.
Yeah, and we've slowly changed our business structure, getting back to doing just one live session a week locally for the local community, where we have teamed up with our local council just to offer this to help people. So it's an exercise and mindfulness session. And so we're going to expand on that as well, so that people who might still have that social anxiety can still exercise at home and the online ones and join in live sessions. But then there's also the option to come out and join like-minded community group where they feel in a nice safe space. And we're very lucky right on the beach here where we exercise in the park. It's beautiful and the sun's shining most days. So it's really, I think, great as well for other people when they feel comfortable and ready to be able to get outdoors and reconnect with people as well, and use exercise, get the endorphins going, start to feel great about themselves. And
it's been amazing for us as well, because over the last 2 years we've been restricted to most of our sessions in our lounge room, running them over Zoom. And now, like at this stage, and we're hoping to expand on this, we're working on a little project at the moment, but we're once a week where we train the local community, and we're looking at the ocean, and it's beautiful sunshine, looking over a beautiful headland. It's called Burleigh Heads, and it's just it's pristine and stunning, and just amazing to look at. So for us as well, from a selfish perspective, we absolutely love doing that as well, because it just breaks up our week. Most of our sessions are in the lounge, and it's nice to just get outside and get some vitamin D and fresh air and exercising outdoors as well.
Variety.
I can relate to that, as I kind of have a similar story. I was personal training in person, and now I'm fully online. And the whole the Zoom is great, but then the whole day goes by and you're like in your basement, you're like, Jesus, I gotta get outside.
100%.
And we've kind of created kind of an accountability thing for ourselves and our members, that just try and just get outdoors for part of your day, whether it's a walk, whether it's getting some sunshine, and try and get active. And whether it doesn't necessarily have to be an exercise session, but going for a walk outdoors, it's just so important for your mental health to get that fresh air and endorphins going.
Connect with nature.
And because we have found all of our work has been online over the last 2 years. So now it's just like, all right, let's get outside. We're getting a bit of cabin fever here. Let's get outdoors and get some sunshine.
So being a PT, I'm sure you can understand.
100%. I remember the height of the lockdown. I think I was going for 3 walks a day, because there was nothing else to do. I was 3 2-hour walks a day sometimes.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Taking my dogs around the neighborhoods, around the fields.
Doing it. It's amazing how good you feel after you do it.
Oh yeah. And it's crazy. It's that just feels normal now. It's now I go for a walk usually once a day, and I'll work out and stuff, but it's I don't go for 3 walks for 2 hours each a day, and I was doing it then, and it just felt like normal. So
but it's interesting how quickly things become habitual as well. It's amazing. We were listening to a neuroscientist recently, and she was saying that only about 10% is your conscious behavior, and the rest is embedded in your subconscious. So unless you actively make changes and that, you're just going to fall back into those same old patterns. So when you start doing something and make it a routine in a way, and then it just becomes habitual, and then it just becomes your life, and then that then becomes into your subconscious. So you're not necessarily going to think about doing it. You just wake up and do it. Or just the same as turning a light switch on, you might use your right hand, not even think about it, driving your car, driving for a while. But when you start, it's that learning how to do it. And then it just becomes normalized. So it's really interesting.
I thought a lot about how much, I'm sure you guys are hip to this stuff from studying for everything you do. But I thought a lot about it during COVID, how just adaptable we are as kind of a species, as humans. Just in a month, it's all of a sudden everybody's inside doing completely different shit, and this is the new normal. Everybody's saying new normal, but it was it's a month in. We've been doing this one way our whole life, and now 2 months, okay, this is normal. It's never going back.
That's so true. And I think for businesses as well, it was amazing how quickly, in big corporate businesses, they just were able to go online. And now a lot of employees still aren't back in the offices. Well, that's over here in Australia.
The same
They're
thing
able
too,
to
yeah.
just, they're just working from home, or they have that flexibility option. And a lot of businesses are actually saying, don't come back because it's
they're
the
saving
overheads
money.
and the costs of their spaces that they're like, oh, it's much better now that you can work from home.
Yeah.
Yeah. No leases on the spaces anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes to show how adaptable we are as humans, and you can change your environment, change everything, change your mindset. It's definitely doable.
Yeah, especially if you have to.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you've got no choice.
I think we probably had to be very adaptable to be able to survive as long.
Yeah, exactly. And over evolution and the years as well. I mean, that's come into place, and that's what we look at, like especially with dealing with that fight or flight response. That back the cave, used to have to. There's a saber-toothed tiger coming at you. You need to switch on, get that sympathetic nervous system going, and run to save your life. So I think now, I mean, different things trigger. And as we mentioned before, we are so bombarded in this day and age with social media, with just everything going on. We just don't have a lot of time to really calm ourselves down. So that's something we love, like working on ourselves as well as teaching, but activating that parasympathetic nervous system, really knowing techniques, I guess, to just, when you are feeling in that adrenalized state, to kind of calm yourself down and start to learn how to do your responses in your body. And like we follow Wim Hof, the Iceman.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fascinating.
Really like his stuff.
Yeah. Have you done ice baths before?
Yeah.
They're intense.
Yeah, pretty intense. I was doing them every morning for a while. I'm not doing them right now, but they're really good though. I found a lot of benefit in them. I found a lot of, and I've talked to other people about this too, mental benefit from them.
100%.
Of this, like, you feel amazing, your body feels good. There's all these benefits, like with your physical body, and then of course with your mental, but like the actual like pushing and just sitting when you're cold, like your body, like your mind's just telling you, I want to get out, but you just breathe. And then it's like a mindfulness practice I found, where it's like you just become right in the moment. Like, I'm just watching the clock, watching the time go by, breathing.
Same with cold showers, I find as well. If you can kind of get your breathing, have steady breathing. Like I try and practice box breathing, which is 4 seconds inhale, stop for 4 seconds, then exhale for 4 seconds, then stop for 4 seconds, and repeat. If I do that with a cold shower, initially I'm like feel that cold, but then if you kind of steady your breathing and focus on your breathing, that's so beneficial for you dealing with stressful scenarios as well, like in your everyday life.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, and that was something I didn't expect, but it was like all of a sudden, like I'm in a stressful situation, and it's like, I've been here. I was here this morning. It's like I've been here for like the last however many days. Do this all the time. Just go back to that breathing.
And I think, and that's what the Navy SEALs are taught, box breathing techniques in high pressure situations, just how to, calm yourself down. And so you stay focused, because obviously when you're in that adrenalized state, your mind just goes everywhere and you're not really thinking clearly. So I 100% agree what you were saying before. It's a really mindfulness, even the ice baths, it's the physicality of the body, but there's definitely that mindfulness aspect, and kind of learning in a way to control your mind and not let it go, okay, this is too intense, I need to jump out right now. I'm starting to tingle, I'm starting to burn, I'm going through these responses on a physical level. But we love all this stuff. I'm being pregnant, I can't do any cold, any ice baths or anything. So looking forward to getting back into it though.
Well, why don't we go into a little bit about your story, Ross? Like, where did it start for you in terms of mental health?
Yeah, sure. So basically, all through my teenage years, I kind of grew up in a friendship group that as soon as, probably we turned 14 or 15, we began binge drinking, as some kids do. That was my friendship group. We, smoked a little bit of weed when we went out and that sort of thing. And I suppose at the age of 19 or 20 is when I started experimenting with recreational drugs. So like ecstasy or MDMA and cocaine and those sort of things. It wasn't until about 2006, when I was probably about the age of 20, that we were traveling through Thailand with a group of mates, group of boys, and we decided, oh, let's try magic mushrooms. And that was probably the first time I ever had a psychotic episode. So during that time, we were all having a bit of fun, and then I decided to go off on my own, and that was probably the worst thing I could have done, and continue my trip on my own, where I was probably in my own interpretation of hell, where I thought I was stuck by myself for the rest of my life. And yeah, my mind was just not in touch with reality. And I just felt so alone during that time. And for a while there afterwards, I just decided, all right, I'm not going to touch drugs or anything anymore. I'm just going to drink alcohol with my mates. And that's what we do. And
Do you mind if I ask, Ross, like, did you take a lot of mushrooms? Was this like I'm just kind of curious, was it like a very heavy trip?
No, it was honestly like in Thailand, I had one of those magic mushroom milkshake things that they give you. And I must say I had a motorbike accident a couple of days beforehand. I was on these drugs, like kind of antibiotics to help me with an infection in my leg. So it might have been a mixture of alcohol, some, drugs I got from, the chemist in Thailand, as well as, a magic mushroom shake. And yeah, it wasn't like I took a heap. It was, just one shake, and that kind of set me over the edge.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I know you're gonna you're kind of explaining after, but I'm just kind of curious, was it like, did you know at the time that it was a psychotic break? And was it kind of just like was it very distressful? Was it like, did it take a while to end? Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it probably lasted probably about 6 to 8 hours sort of thing. And it was very distressful. I was and I had no idea what it was. Like, I'd never experienced anything like that before. I had no idea what was going on. I kind of had this weird this thought process that everything I'd done in life, all the bad things I'd done in life, I was being punished for some reason. And now I look back at that and go, what was that? But it made so much sense at the time.
Right.
And I was probably alone for about an hour or two before my friends came, and they kind of looked after me I just went back to the room. I said, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. But then that was when I was having all these very strange delusional thoughts. And then my friends tried to support me through it. But, what they saw was another thing that was, I was quite ashamed of, because I was doing things that was out of character, and they were probably a bit freaked out themselves because they didn't know what psychosis was or anything. So they weren't in any danger or anything like that, but there was just a few things that I was very embarrassed about. And for the rest of that holiday, I was constantly thinking about what I'd just been through, and very ashamed of that and embarrassed as well.
Did you feel normal after you came out of it though, those 6 to 8 hours?
Nah. I felt very not like a lot more normal than I was for those 6 to 8 hours, but I was still probably for the rest of that holiday still kind of a little bit out of touch with reality. And but nothing on like future episodes that we might touch on. It was kind of my first ever episode that I for the rest of our holiday, I was just kind of had in the back of my mind that I was not completely with it, I guess.
Where did you go from there? Where did you go from there?
So then actually a couple of years later, I went to go live in London and travel through Europe and South America, and that's where I probably continued on with experimenting with some recreational drugs and drinking. And I think the next major episode was at a music festival when I was living in the UK, and that really knocked me around. And it was actually after that, like I probably once again another 6 to 8 hours that I was had quite a bad episode. that we came back to London, and I actually decided I'm not going to do drugs for a while. I'm not going to, once again, I chose to drink because I suppose that was part of my identity in my early 20s as well, that all my friends were drinking around me. So I need to, to fit in, especially back then in your younger years, I felt I needed to drink to fit in. So I didn't give up drinking. And from that music festival, we went and traveled through Europe. And at the start of our holiday, we were going through Spain. And just one night after a big night drinking, I woke up a bit hungover the next day. And that's when I had flashbacks to my first and second psychotic episodes. So the Thailand one and the one at the music festival. And then just for the next few days, I was just, I reckon, constantly getting flashbacks, out of touch with reality. And I just didn't sleep well for the next few days after that. And I think sleep deprivation, the accumulation of these flashbacks, it just all took its toll on my my overall well-being. And I just decided, like, I was on a cliff's edge where I'm just like, I need to go to hospital now. I don't know what's going on with me, but I need something. And I, with my ex-girlfriend at the time, I said, no, I've had enough. I can't sleep. This is 3 days now that I've just been out of touch with reality. I need to go to hospital. And that journey to hospital, because we're in the middle of Spain, just kind of in a bit of a no man's land part of Spain, I guess, but we had to catch a train to the closest city. And the stuff that went on that train, all these paranoid thoughts that people were all out to get me. I was about to jump off the train at one stage, and finally got myself into hospital. And I just said, look, I'm having all these unusual thoughts. I've never had this experience before. I just need something to go to sleep. I need to sleep. And that's when they put me in a mental hospital, probably for the next week, in a Spanish mental hospital where no one spoke English and everyone spoke Spanish, and I didn't speak Spanish. So that was pretty terrifying at the time, thinking I will never get out of this situation where everyone speaks Spanish and no one will ever speak to me in English ever again. So that was another really tough 7 days, I guess, in the hospital.
It must have been so difficult. I'm just like, imagine that feeling of like not knowing what's going on, not being able to sleep, having these like flashbacks, and then having to go to the hospital. What was I guess what was the feeling like
in hospital?
Or just, I guess, over that time where like you kind of like there was that switch to starting to have the flashbacks and starting to feel this way? I mean, was it kind of like a feeling of like terror or like fear? Like constant
fear and terror. It was a constant flashback to that, what we kind of touched on earlier, that once again, in my own interpretation of hell, where I was getting punished for all the bad things I'd done, and and then once again getting put in a hospital where no one spoke any English. That was, I can't really explain how tough that was at the time.
But there was also a bit of, you were scared. You mentioned there were people in straitjackets in the psychiatric ward, and quite heavily medicated, obviously, at this stage. And there was that fear and scared of what's going on. And
and like some, like, just from memory, like it's pretty vague going back to it now, but you get, I sometimes remember parts of it, but I just remember some of the nurses that were working there kind of took me under their wing, and they said, like, what do you need from us? But like, through Google Translate or like some version of that back in 2008. And I was just typing back to them, what I needed. So they really just tried to help me, because I knew I didn't speak Spanish. So they were speaking in Spanish through a computer that was, rephrasing
be
things
so
to me,
weird.
and I was writing back to them. But because I was so out of touch of reality, like my ex-girlfriend going back then, she like provided me with a few books to read while I was in there, and like because we're in Spain, there wasn't many English texts, I guess, and one of those books was Bridget Jones' Diary or something like that, and I just remember reading the start of the book, and it was just like a list of things for her to improve her life or something like that. It made complete sense to me at the time, but I thought I'd just create that my own version of that list for the nurses and like how I'd improve my life, but base it kind of off Bridget Jones's Diary. And look, I can laugh about it now, but they would have been like, what is this person going on about? But yeah, like it's kind of nice that we can laugh about it now, but it's definitely not something, if you're going through it now, it's not a really laughing manner, but it makes complete sense in your own mind at that time. And everything's so real that, oh, this is how I'm going to improve my life. I'll write a list, just like Bridget Jones did. And that's how I suppose someone suffering with mental illness or having psychosis is really thinking. Everything is just so real.
Right. I've heard a lot of people describe it like that, where it's like everything kind of connects. It's like, I've heard quite a few people with bipolar, something called delusions of grandeur. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Something like very common, like they're God, or they know God, or they've been sent from God to do something to help people in some way.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think they have that, those delusions of grandeur, and then they also have the opposite, where they can have the really low lows as well with bipolar. I think it can be those high highs, and from a little bit I've read about it and know, but I don't know a lot about it. But there's that I'm on top of the world,
sometimes no sleep, sometimes like no sleep, like delusions like that, going crazy with like productivity. I mean, like crazy with like productivity, doing all kinds of things, and then just like
crash and burn,
sleep,
and deep depressive states, and it's really hard.
How did you get out of there?
Well, my ex at the time didn't feel comfortable to be the, I suppose, guardian to get me out of hospital. So she called my family, and my dad and my brother actually flew over from Australia and made their way down to where I was in the hospital in Spain. And so, which kind of extended my stay in the hospital a bit longer. And then when they finally came into the hospital, they released me, and then we drove through Spain and France, and did the Eurail back to London, and then I had a few days before we had to wait for our flight back to Australia, and still very much out of touch with reality that whole time. I remember on the flight home, my like monitor screen wasn't working, and so I just thought like basically my brother and I were sitting in the wrong seats, and I thought because I was sitting in the wrong seat, that's why my monitor wasn't working. And like I'd made up in my mind that, oh no, if we swap seats, then my monitor will work. And so all these kind of weird, strange thoughts, and like trying to sleep in the aisle on the plane ride home, where the flight attendants, like, you can't sleep in the aisles. Sorry, you got to stay in your seat. It's a lot of stuff like that. And then when I finally got back to Australia, I probably spent the next 2 years of my life, with a lot of social anxiety and paranoid thoughts, where I didn't really want to leave the house. And just spent most of that time, going through lots of psychotic episodes, and I'd have kind of ebbs and flows with my health. And my friends would come around and help me get out of the house, and we'd go exercise or get out in nature. I had really good support networks around me. So that was another reason why we built our business, because a lot of people don't have that support network around them. And we're trying to build a platform for people to feel like it's a full community and we're all out to help each other. And I'm that person now Jayne is as well, that we can help assist if they want to do some exercise or if they want to do some mindfulness, teach them those techniques and strategies to handle their own health.
But you had side effects from your medication, like you put a lot of weight gain, didn't you?
Yes.
You're a bit of when I met Ross, even a bit of a rattling pharmacy, like just the amount of medication he was on, antipsychotics, antidepressants. You probably know the medication.
Yeah. But I kind of felt like because I was suffering from so much anxiety, I always had to have some sort of benzo medication, anxiety medication in my pocket, just as like it's almost a security blanket for myself. For all right, if I have that in my pocket, I'll be okay. And if I'm starting to feel some anxious thoughts, then I'll pop a benzo, like a Xanax or an anxiety type medication, and that will make it all better. But I suppose when you're mixing that with alcohol, I was starting, during those stages where I was getting better, I was wanting to socialize with my friends again, and they're still, in their early to mid 20s where they want to go out and drink and party. So I was, just dabbling again. And there was many years there where I was up and down and up and down. And just, if I'd go out and drink, then I'd just suffer for the next few days just with hangovers and anxiety. And so there's a lot of life lessons to learn. Like we don't really drink anymore.
Well, I don't drink at all. Haven't drunk for nearly 3 years.
I think where it's probably just doesn't agree with us, and I know that I get anxious thoughts if I drink too much. So we're just not something as part of our life anymore. But
I think you were quite fortunate having that network. This was well before I met Ross as well. When you were going out again with your friends, your family had a bit of an intervention with you, didn't they? They could see that you're getting back into that scene a little bit more, starting to go, and could see the repercussions, obviously, for days afterwards and panic attacks and how it was affecting you. So they kind of held a bit of a family meeting, and
which was tough because I chose to stop drinking, but it was a huge identity crisis for me as well, because all of my life and all my friendship groups were that's what we did. We caught up over a beer, and it wasn't, we weren't doing healthy things. So it was kind of that. I found that really tough in the early stages, which I don't find tough anymore. Like I actually love my life and love our life with our family, and we're very active people. We get outdoors and we exercise, and surfing's that's probably when I stopped drinking. Surfing was something that I was my new obsession, I suppose. And I just absolutely love that and just live for it and live for our family and our daughter. And it's just part of our life, part of my life that I'm not ashamed of, because it's still part of who I am, but it's not so much what I think I need to go back and do when I catch up with my friends now. I can go and be sober and hang out and still have fun.
I I can relate to this massively, by the way. I got sick, I got really sick in my early 20s, and I couldn't drink anymore. But I think the reason I bring it up, I think it's just interesting, like you said, I think I was gonna say especially for guys, but I think it's the same. I think it's just when you're in your early 20s, it's hard to let go of it when you can't, or you shouldn't do it. And it really is it's a hard thing to let go of. It really is a social thing that is it's really hard to stop doing.
And it's so normalized in society. That's the other thing. It's and then people question why aren't you drinking? And then there's that encouragement, we'll just have one or two, you'll be fine. And I think there's a lack of understanding sometimes.
It's become a societal way of it's been normalized, and you have to have fun, you need to have a drink, and we can still have fun and wake up amazing next day and wake up early and go for a surf. And yeah, I just find it funny that it's the way we've been brought up, and social norms, and we've adopted what's the word? Indoctrinations and all these things that probably passed down from many generations.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but over here there's a big drinking culture, and there's a lot of
huge
culture
here too.
Yeah. So it's,
and then I suppose it's funny because like, and this is just an example of it. We have an Australian tennis player over here that recently won the Australian Open, Ash Barty, and first thing the commentators did, or the people at the desk, was hand her a beer, and it's just like, let's celebrate, let's have a beer. And I just thought to myself, like, why would you do that to an elite athlete and give her a beer? Look, she might like beer, but it's just a funny way of, these are role models for the next generation. And like, that's, athletes don't really do that, especially when they're training. Look, she might have enjoyed the celebratory beer, but it's just a weird thing to do, to televise on, worldwide TV. That, all right, well, let's give her a beer to celebrate, but she might have wanted water.
Normalize that behavior again. I can understand how it would have been tough for you, especially that age group as well, with your health concern, not drinking.
I kind of got sick. It was weird because I was the same, as like very similar story, like around 12, 13, 14, drinking a lot, smoking weed, binge drinking. I got sick at first when I was 16, and then I really was drinking a lot and, doing everything else. And then I got sick like really bad at 22. But like at 16, I kind of had to slow down a lot and I had to stop. I was doing it every once in a while, but then in my early 20s, I just kind of let it loose. And then I had to stop. Didn't have a choice. I lost a bunch of weight, but I think it is pretty crazy when you stop and think about it, how integrated it is into our society and how normalized it is. How dangerous it is, how bad it is for health. And I'm not saying like, I think, and everybody I had a lot of fun doing it. I think anybody should do it if they want to do it, but it's just, it is a crazy thing when you stop and take a look at it and you're like, like this is just such a normal thing. And, like you guys would know, like, and you, Ross, like making that transition, it's like, well, when you get used to not doing it, you don't even care and don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And then like I go out and hang with my friends and they're all like drunk, and I just wake up and do my shit the next day and have fun. And then like they're like hungover for 2 days and they got to like go eat McDonald's. And then it's like, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. And I feel like for some of our friends, it can be a bit uncomfortable for them not having us drink, but I think that's more of a projection from them and what they're dealing with, because they need it to, to be outrageous or whatever, give them confidence or whatever it is that they, and they still enjoy it, which is great, and there's no judgment. But it's sometimes, I think, having sober people there maybe is a bit of a reflection on them as well, and they could potentially think, oh, what am I doing? I guess, we're all a bit older now, and it's still this, repetitive every weekend, just so maybe because it's questioning or highlighting something within themselves, they don't feel comfortable with us being around necessarily.
I think of like you guys talked about like being disconnected, and kind of, with social media now, being disconnected in general, I think. And then, I just see this now, like with my generation, and like it's kind of like I guess probably like a lot of generations, just like they get dependent on that every week thing, and then that's like their social life. And it's like, that's how you connect, like, like as you mentioned, like that's how you connect with your friends. So it's like when that's taken away, it's like, how do I connect with my friends? And it's weird because like, you go and party with your buddies on Friday, you stay there on Saturday, you guys are all doing stuff together, and it's like, it's a different thing. It's like what you guys do. But I think there might be a relation between, and I'm just like throwing thoughts out there, but there might be a relation between like social anxiety, being so connected to technology, and then, not being used to connecting, and then just going out and getting drunk and just making it easier to connect.
Exactly. Oh, I couldn't agree more. We watched, what was that? Social Dilemma. Have you seen that one? It shows
Um,
how
Netflix, social dilemma.
like all the algorithms are designed on that social media to just keep you hooked and keep you attached and keep you clicking likes. And it was statistically showing, you know, how many, I think it was based in America, but how many like young kids were then struggling with, because of, you know, they weren't getting X amount of likes or comments on their posts or whatever they're doing, and then just not being able to leave the house, not being able to connect with people. And you're right, that's perfect like escape in a way. Just, well, I don't know how to socialize, so I'll just get drunk and then, you know.
I'll make this really easy. Just give me like 4 or 5
exactly.
beers and it'll be really easy. And
yeah, that's so true. Which is sad that we're kind of pushed that way in society now, that it is, you know, lack of that human connection and kind of just catching up with people and interacting on a deeper level. It can become very surface in a way. Like, oh, how's work? That's good. You well, yeah, great. Okay. There's no real depth, I guess, there to a lot of discussions. And
but that's where I found, just finding a hobby like surfing, or like we've had clients that found a hobby like archery or something they've always wanted to try. And if you kind of go all in on that hobby and you're really passionate and enjoy it, you actually meet different friendship groups. Like since I started surfing, I've got kind of my surf mates that I'll go out for a surf with. And it's all like, you just kind of, like, I've still got my friendship group that from back in the day when we used to drink and everything like that. But then I've got, you know, I've kind of formed new friendship groups, which is like probably a healthier friendship group where we go out and do things that, surf or get out in nature and do things that we love. And I suppose if you can find a hobby, which was something we try to encourage with our clients, something you've always wanted to do, or something you're really passionate or something you enjoy, then you're going to meet people.
Those connections with like-minded individuals. Yeah.
You know, I think the interesting thing about that too is like, usually we want to do that hobby anyway. You know what I mean? But when you're stuck, that's the other thing about like being stuck in the cycle of every weekend with the drinking thing. It kind of takes time, and you can end up like you're not doing the things you really want to be doing.
Exactly. And you lose motivation.
Yeah.
Like when those first few days of the week is tough and you're still recovering, and then you kind of like, you start looking forward to the weekend again and what you're going to plan. And it's kind of like you're just in no man's land in a way. It's
a vicious cycle in a way.
Yeah. And then your ambitions and dreams get left aside because you're so distracted with these other things in your life. So you're not really putting your attention or focus onto things like personal goals that you might want to achieve or something you might want to start, or yeah,
for sure. So when you came back to Australia, did you get diagnosed? Did you go to like doctors here? What happened when you got back?
I was diagnosed with initially drug-induced psychosis and anxiety and depression. The depression probably lasted maybe 6 months or something like that. I think the shame and guilt attached to what I'd just been through played a huge role in the depression. So that was probably the first 6 months of living back in Australia, and actually went through quite a few different psychiatrists during my most acute stages because I just couldn't find the right one. And I always encourage that to our clients. If you're seeking professional help, find someone you can relate to and find someone that you really like and you enjoy seeing, because if you're not enjoying that relationship, it's probably not going to work. And there's plenty of professionals out there that can help you. But like one of those psychiatrists also diagnosed me with schizophrenia as well, which is, I suppose, drug-induced psychosis comes under that whole schizophrenia umbrella. And that was really hard for me at the time, kind of telling some of my friends that I had that. And I suppose the stigma attached to that illness, and what I'd grown up thinking schizophrenics were like, I suppose society back then was telling me that schizophrenia, if you had that illness, that you're, a psychotic killer, or, that's the stuff that were told in the news back then. So I found there was a lot of shame and guilt attached to that. And if anything, I was like complete opposite to that. I feared everything. I didn't want to leave the house. Like, I was never once violent around my family. I was mostly just fearing life and fearing the outside world. So yeah, there was a few diagnoses along the way, and then I suppose I really had a great relationship with my last psychiatrist. And during that time, I actually met Jayne back in 2015. Yes. And I just started a Bachelor of Health and Physical Education. So I'm becoming a PE teacher. This is around the time when I stopped drinking and I was focusing on other things, and getting into surfing and study and just keeping myself really busy. And I was actually going through a really good patch when I met Jayne, and I was still medicated, heavily medicated. And Jayne, after probably 6 months of knowing me, just said, like, kind of asked the question, why are you still taking medication? And I said, well, all my professional help, all my psychiatrists have said I'll be on medication for the rest of my life. And Jayne kind of just asked the question again, well, why do you think that is? Like, you're going really well at the moment. Why not ask your psychiatrist or your psychiatrist whether you can come off that medication, whether you can wean off and slowly over time come off those medications. And I thought to myself at the time, I was like, nah, no way I could come off my medication, because that was probably 7 years of living with my illness, heavily medicated. And I was like, nah, I'm doing the right thing now. I don't want to go back to where I was. And then, over time, I'm just like, oh, well, what? Yeah, I could always ask the question to the psychiatrist, and he's like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's just try and, over time, we'll slowly take back your medication, wean you off, and cut it into quarters. And just slow. Like, I would never say come off your medication to anyone who's really struggling, but if you've got someone who's working with you, a team that's supportive and knows a lot about meds and can help you and assist you to come off it, then yeah, there's no harm in asking the question, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I think for you it was I picked up it was a bit of a lack of a confidence as well. It was a security blanket having the meds there. It wasn't necessarily because he needed them to function. It was more that, well, if anything did happen, and that's where the mind was wandering into the potentials, that you just wanted them there just in case, but still taking it daily. But for me, I found it was, you're functioning really well. You're in good headspace. It was just the confidence issue that was,
I imagine there must have been a lot of fear to, like you mentioned, like to potentially go back to that place, or like, you're in such a good place now. You just want to make sure that you doing everything you can not to go back.
Yeah. 100%. It was always in the back of my mind. Look, I've come so far, and it is a really slow process. It's just, slowly you do get better if you put all the strategies in place. And when you're already 7 years into your illness and you look back at the way you were 7 years ago, like the thought of coming off meds is like, there's that fear attached. No way I want to go back to the way I was 7 years ago. So now I'm, what year is it? 14 years into, that was 14 years ago when I first was diagnosed, and I've been off medication for 7 years and haven't felt the need to go back.
But you've done a lot, as you said, you've implemented a lot of strategies into his life to help himself. So if he was having a panic attack or having a night terror or just anxiety, you've got the tools and techniques and strategies, I guess, to do that. And you started doing meditations every day, you were doing journaling, you were changing, I guess, you stopped drinking, focusing on other, and just a kind of being aware of where the mind was going, in a way, of your thought processes, and getting stressed out with your exams for university, for example. And so, I mean, it's been, as you said, a long process, but you've also got to take credit that you've made these changes consciously and implemented them regularly. Like, it's very easy to say someone do this, do that, but to actually action that and take accountability in a way to want to help yourself and improve yourself to where you are. I think that's so important. I mean, we can all just talk about it, but unless you're doing it, you're not going to see the changes necessarily.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think No, it's very interesting because I talked to a lot of people that kind of went through like the path of, they have like an incident and then they get diagnosed. And then there's always like a middle period I've noticed where like things are getting better, but they're not. They kind of go in and out. And then it's always like things really started to click when they really just started to take it serious and do all the things they need to do every day.
Yeah.
I think
So true.
it's interesting. And, I think that's like, I think it's a good message to, I'm sure that's what you guys help people with. And I know that's what I help people with as a coach.
Yeah. We try and just teach all those techniques and strategies, and we've, just through research learned there's constantly new techniques and strategies evolving over time. Like Jayne wrote an ebook on how to, 7 unusual ways of dealing with anxiety, and it was all these things that came up. It's like, wow, these are all cool strategies and techniques. We'd love to offer that ebook to your listeners as well.
It's all free just on our website, and but also it's interesting. We're fascinated with like how the brain works as well, and the neuroplasticity, how we can form new neural pathways. And even though a lot of our behavior is learned behavior from up until the age of 7, that you can learn these new strategies and you can teach yourself. And then, as we were talking about before, making things habitual, and then your brain just, these new neural pathways are formed, and then that just becomes normalized in your life. So these new techniques that you think maybe what you went through, you never really saw that end goal or light at the end of the tunnel, that you could get off your medication, you could change. And and now you're practicing all these new techniques, and it's just become part of your lifestyle and and that's just now your fallback, so to speak.
And I think like facing some of your fears or anxiety as well is really important as well to like, for instance, there's no way I would have been able to do anything like this, what we're doing now and chatting, on podcasts back 14 years ago. But as time has progressed, I've slowly got a little bit better. And I said no to one of my mates when he asked me to do a best man speech, and I like sat on it for and he's like, yeah, I completely respect that, your decision, and that's fine, but have a think about it, because I really love for you to do my best man speech. And I sat on it for the next 3 months or something like that, and slowly just my mates were encouraging me, no, you can do it, like you're doing really well now. And I had kind of like a bit of a cheer squad around me, like, yeah, you can do it. And then that was like one of the biggest fears to face, like public speaking in front of 150 guests at a wedding and standing up there with a microphone. But I kind of, that 3 months passed, and I knew I had to kind of face that. And I've done a few public speaking gigs since, but it's something, it's probably important part of the process to face some of those fears or anxieties. And like Jayne said, you can create those new neural pathways by, I got through that last time, I can get through it this time. And every podcast we do now, just slowly get a little bit more confident with what we talk about, and over time you just get better at it. It's like anything, it's like practicing a new skill. And
the speech was great, it was brilliant. And we were having that discussion. We're like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You stuff up the speech and you run off stage or whatever it is. You're still alive, you're still healthy. When you put it into perspective, in a way, it change, I guess, your thought process behind it. And before the speech you were a bit nervous, and then brilliant. So and then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, I can actually do that.
It's funny that like we build it up so much more in our head than the reality ever is.
Exactly.
And the funniest part is, like, everyone's kind of looking forward to the best man speech. You've almost got the easiest job on the night, because in Australia anyway, everyone like loves that part of the wedding. And I remember I've got a good friend who's a comedian who does public speaking on a daily basis, and he's just like, man, you've got the easiest job on the night. It's like, you just you stand up there and everyone's looking forward to hearing you speak, and they're going to laugh at whatever you say.
And it's not even about you, it's about
about them. Yeah. But you kind of make it about yourself, and you create all these stories in your own mind that
Right.
you know, and that's where anxiety all begins with. It's all these stories you create in your own mind, and
which are based on potential outcomes that don't even exist.
Yeah.
So we're creating these stories of worst case scenarios and getting all worked up, and it never happened, or it might never happen.
So that's why it's really important to stay present and kind of
Yeah.
practice gratitude with all the good things that are happening in your life. And that's why we try and meditate mornings and night and start off the day right and really present. And yeah, as soon as my mind wanders about things and worry about the future, it's like, hang on a sec. Like, you're creating this story in your head that is probably not going to eventuate anyway. Why do you even do that? And I think it's just part of kind of human nature that the brain is out to protect you, isn't it? So yeah, we've evolved over the time where, like Jayne touched on earlier, it's like saber-toothed tigers were going to attack us. You kind of always had that in the back of your mind that, you know, I'm eating or sleeping, there's something that's going to kill us. Whereas yeah, I suppose over time our brains don't change, they're still trying to protect us.
Yeah, and that's why we get that fight or flight response for public speaking or whatever it might be, because our body's reacting to the thought that, oh, this brings fear, and then that, you know, that creates these physiological responses. So it's really interesting looking at anxiety and how our body reacts, and then learning to what we can do, I guess, in a way, to assist ourselves with that, to stop that just becoming our natural reaction to a circumstance. Someone says, you're in a big crowd, okay, I want you to get up and say something, and then straight away your heart rate goes, you start to feel, you know, sweaty palms and things. So it's really learning.
What's my name again? My name is
yeah, exactly. That's so true. And it's
John.
So,
no, that's not my name. Fuck.
Sorry.
I was like, John? No, that's not my name. Fuck.
Mattys?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it happens to so many people, and that's the thing. And I mean, you know, the fact that we can reverse that in a way, it's fascinating that doesn't have to be our fallback where our body reacts that way. But I find that really interesting. But I think it's a norm for a lot of people.
It makes me think back to like the ice bath for some reason, just sitting in the ice bath and like just not, it's like you might feel a certain way, like you think like, I want to get out of this tub, but it's like, just because your body's telling you that, you don't have to believe it.
Yeah,
it's kind of a similar thing.
100%.
I started doing comedy like 3 years ago. I've been doing it, and I was so fucking nervous the first time I went up. I was like almost thrown up, and I was so nervous for the longest time doing it, and now I don't even think about it. So it's interesting that you know, things can really change over time.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And do you still do it?
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
That's so good.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the most feared things. Like, you know, all your listeners are probably like, oh, how could you do comedy? Like, that's the most feared thing I could ever do in my whole entire life. But if you face it, you know, you've already done it once, you can do it again. You didn't die the first time.
Yeah. And the worst case, people don't laugh, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you have enough you know, shows where you like, you know, especially when you're starting out, where you like bomb, like you don't do good, you get no laughs, you're like, well, you question why you're doing it, and you're like, this was fucking embarrassing, and you have all these bad feelings. But then like after that, you're like, okay, well, the worst can happen is I'll just that, and I won't die. And it's kind of funny anyway that I just like got up there, said some things I thought were funny, and they didn't even laugh. So, but
That's awesome. That's so good.
But that's all part of the job too, isn't it? You got to practice gags, practice jokes, and like, all right, that one. I remember watching. There's this comedian. Have you ever heard of Jayne?
He's an Irish comedian.
Jayne.
I don't think so, but
he's a Irish comedian. But we went and saw his almost like a practice show at a comedy club once, and he's like, you know, he's a high level comedian in Australia. Around the world. But he actually had a notepad out and he was practicing jokes and ticking off the good ones and crossing off the bad ones. And that was he just put that as part of his routine, and I thought it was
And it was
hilarious.
genuine.
Yeah,
He was
it's
like,
like,
"Okay,
oh,
you
you don't
guys
like
don't
that
like
one?
that
Cross that one out. Oh, you
Yeah.
like that one? Okay, tick this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Very
That's how it
funny.
goes. It's just like, well, this
Yeah.
you write something and you think it might be funny, and it's like, well, that wasn't funny at all. And then
Yeah,
just
yeah.
move on.
It's
Scratch
funny
that off.
if you like, we constantly making mistakes in business, and you learn from those mistakes, and then you grow from that. It's, you know, it's part of life. You
Part of
make
the process.
mistakes and you grow, and you know, the most successful people in the world, they would have made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I think there's a lot of rich people who were once bankrupt. I think Richard Branson was bankrupt at one stage.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know. I could have just been plucking that up in air, but I know there's a
I'm
lot
sure
of
there are a lot.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
successful
It's just that not giving up and that keep persevering, and yeah.
Yeah, like the whole fail forward, and you win or you learn, or there's no
Exactly.
failure, only learning. Like that's
Exactly.
very true. And
Yep. I think
sure,
that
you guys
people
know
are
with
good
like
at that.
business as well, like there's lots to learn and
Yep.
fail at and learn.
Yep.
And
Fear of failure is the biggest holdback, I think, in anything in life.
yeah,
Give it a go. And yeah. Yep.
yeah. Fear of success too sometimes, which is interesting.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, true.
Very true. Yep. We have blockages, and they might, subconscious, not even be aware of them. Fear of success, fear of being too successful, and what does, without even knowing it necessarily. And we self-sabotage sometimes without realizing it, just in our behaviors. Yep. Yeah. It's fascinating, the psychology of people as well.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
I guess what have been the biggest things? I'm sure you mentioned a lot of them so far. What were like the biggest things that helped you, Ross?
Well, exercise was huge for me during my recovery. I'm a personal trainer and a PE teacher, and I found just getting out, and I suppose even during my most acute stages, as a technique and strategy to get myself out of a panic attack or psychotic episode, was walking the dog, just getting outdoors. And look, we touched on it earlier. We still try and get outdoors for part of the day. We see the benefits of just getting outside for, it might only be half an hour, but going for a walk and getting some fresh air. And that was part of my processes. Dealing with a panic attack. All right, I need to it was kind of like a ritual. I'd go get the dog's lead or the leash, and grab the dog, and then I'd walk the dog around the park, and that would kind of break the cycle or the episode that I was going through. Exercise. I just started doing like progressive muscle relaxation, like guided meditations. So just to kind of ground myself, but and you know, there's no shame in doing guided meditations. Like if that's what's going to help you, like we can do that now, and because we're used to doing it ourselves, but and just guide ourselves. But there's no harm in jumping on YouTube and doing a progressive muscle relaxation, a PMR technique, just to start with contracting with your feet, contracting with your calves, your quads, and work your way up your body, and just really grounding yourself, and you know, getting back in your own body is really important as part of if you're suffering with an anxiety attack or panic attack. So lots of techniques, you know, eating healthily, breath work, 4 square breathing, or box breathing, what I talked about earlier. What else? Just trying to stay connected with friends and community, and routine as well. Sometimes when I go through those stages of really struggling, I might take some time off work, but then I was stuck with my own thoughts. And so sometimes that was the worst thing for me when I was really struggling, is just kind of not having anything to do. So having the routine of, you know, facing a little bit of a fear of going into work, but still kind of doing things that almost distract yourself, was really important for me as well. And there was a period of time where I didn't go straight back to personal training. I just did a simple job, it's not simple. You can work any job, but casual jobs, where I worked in a like a yard, helping stack pallets, and delivery driving, and things to just help build my confidence to know I can get back into the workforce. And so, like, because all part of that is socializing with other colleagues as well. And as time progressed and my confidence grew, that's when my parents and my family and my friends encouraged me to get back into personal training. And that's when I was, prior to going into my workplace, I was visualizing and using mental rehearsal before I went into each shift. I'd be kind of imagining myself teach my clients and have just normal conversations, which I was fearing so much in the lead up to it. But if I kind of rehearsed in my head that it'd be okay going into it, I was completely fine. So I'd go in really calm going into work, and just as time grew, I just I feel like I've become a pretty good personal trainer. And I look back at that time and kind of quite proud of myself that there was a stage there that every time I went into work, I was laying in my bed, using mental rehearsal, or imagining how the shift would go. And now I can just kind of do it just subconsciously. And like I always plan a session now, but it's like it just comes so easy to me. Like if someone throws a spanner in the works that they've got an injury or something like that, I can modify their workout or their routine and kind of think on the spot. Whereas back in the day, I was probably just like, all right, I've got my mental rehearsal in my head, this is how I'm going to do it. But just as time goes on and confidence grows, these are all things you just learn, I guess. So I think I answered your question in a roundabout way.
Right. No, I think that's interesting with the like the mental rehearsing. That was something that really helped you, eh?
Yeah. So like I think I even did that in the lead up to my public speaking gig as well. Like the best man speech and a few other public speaking gigs, and just imagining like how well it goes. And it's kind of like it's all almost manifesting how you want it to be, and you like living it and feeling it. And if you're feeling those feelings of it going really well, then it will go well. It's all part of that. I suppose being really present and mindful of what you're doing. And I don't do mental rehearsal in the lead up to exercise sessions or facilitating my sessions now, but like back in the day, that was so helpful for me.
But in other aspects of your life, you might do it now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I want to say thank you so much, guys, for coming on and sharing your guys' story.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Maddie.
It's a joy to chat. Yeah.
Where can people find more about Quick Results Training? Where can people find you guys?
So our website is www.quickresultstraining.com. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook at Quick Results Training. But as Ross touched on earlier, we've got heaps of free resources on our website. So please feel free, if you're struggling with anxiety, insomnia, struggling with getting to sleep at night, depression, we've got heaps of resources, 7-day free trials, absolutely no strings attached, just to help people get kickstarted into that routine where they can just start exercising. We've got heaps of recorded videos on our website for individuals just to really help them start their journey into making them a little bit accountable and taking action in a way to that's something that you are struggling with, to start to help yourself as well. So jump on our website would be the best and access free resources. Just take advantage of it all, and just we're here. That's our main passion and goal, just to help other people. So if we can help them in any way, that's wonderful.
No, that's
and
awesome.
Some of those, Jayne kind of talked about it before, but some of those exercise sessions are only 5 minutes, and getting yourself off the couch for 5 minutes is a huge achievement if you're really struggling with anxiety or depression. So we've created really gentle exercise routines that is just simply, you know, it might break up your day. You might do it once, you might do it twice, you might only get through 2 minutes of the routine, but that is a huge tick or achievement in itself. That if you set yourself really small tasks and goals throughout the day and you get, you know, part of that done, or you know, you might do it twice, as I said earlier, that's huge. And then the next day you might try and progress that a little, or you might have a bad day and you only do a part of it. But if you can kind of do something and keep yourself accountable every single day, whether it's listening to one of our guided meditations or following 2 minutes of a 5-minute exercise routine, that's just a big tick. And, you know, you go into the next day.
Yeah, start to feel really good about yourself for achieving them, rather than setting unrealistic tasks that we just probably won't do. None of us would really do. So it's really good, I think, to start small, as Ross said, and and just give yourself some credit as well, some recognition for just doing, you know, a little bit of movement for the day or whatever it might be.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. The small changes. Yeah. I think, as you guys would know, this is what I help clients with as well, is like the just setting small goals, opposed to like trying to do like an hour and a half at the gym and doing that for a little while, and it's just too much, where it's like just building up the habit. Even 5 minutes is good.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Jayne, I have a question for you, if you guys don't mind. Just a quick question before
of course.
we hop off. This just came to my mind. What has this been like for you? I guess I'm just thinking for people maybe listening, like, it seems like you're very supportive of this throughout the whole thing. Maybe could you talk a little bit about that, and maybe like some advice to maybe someone that is in the similar position where they're supporting someone that may be struggling or going through a journey like this?
Yeah, absolutely. Love supporting Ross, and I've had family and friends go through mental health struggles as well. So it was quite familiar to me when I met Ross, and that's what I loved. The first thing, that he was so open about it. I think the first time, you know, we went on our first date, he just, really opened up and started telling me a bit about his story and his background. But I think it's so important for a care support person to look after their own mental health as well, because it's very easy to get, I guess, dragged into someone else's situation and take a lot on board, and then you're not really able to function or look after yourself as well, and then you're not really going to be any use to the person you're trying to support. So I think we do actually have quite a few members that are support people, that they do exercise just for their own mental health as well, and just to look after them and encourage them, and also to be so aware of not taking it on board and realize there are professionals out there, you know, to be able to assist the person struggling to get that help. And you just do what's in your parameters, in your boundaries, what you feel comfortable with. I think that's really important. So for me, like compassionate empathy, I love helping others. Like I feel like a bit of my calling. Like it brings me personal joy, and seeing others progress and helping them through their lives. So that's my personality type, though. I enjoy, but I think there's got to be boundaries for people as well. Like, it's great to be there as a support person, but you've also really got to be aware of what your limitations are. And, you know, we're not professionals, so to speak. We're their loved ones or their friends or whatever it might be. So offer as much support as you feel comfortable with, and guidance and your knowledge, but also realize there are professionals out there who can help the people struggling, and especially with everything, with anxiety, with depression, with more acute illnesses like bipolar or psychosis or schizophrenia. So it's very important, I think, just to have that awareness and do what you feel comfortable in your realm with.
Right.
Yeah,
that's good advice. Yeah, I think that's maybe something that would be a place people would struggle, maybe, is like the trying to do too much or not taking care of themselves. Yeah.
And it's very easy to burn out yourself, I think, because it can be human nature to try and fix people or take it on board. And that's not our role or our place. It's just being there to support them, and, you know, and just be there for them with whatever capacity that might feel comfortable for you. And that's so important, that, you know, that you're able to look after yourself as well as then being able to support them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I want to say thanks again so much, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate it, all the way over from Australia. It's the morning there. It's the evening here. Thanks for hopping on, guys.
Thank you. I hope it's not
Thank
too
you,
late
Maddie.
at night there for you now.
Oh, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
It's late.
And
Oh,
we
thank
just
you.
want to say thank you for doing what you're doing and opening
Yeah.
up the conversation. And
What you're doing is so important. It's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. If
Yeah.
it helps anybody, it's worth it. Go check out quickresultstraining.com. Find some resources. Let's go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maddie.